You know, we often talk about barriers to entry in business. And
Right.
usually when we say that, we're talking about, I don't know, capital or maybe complex regulations or just finding that elusive market fit.
Right, the usual suspect.
Yeah, the usual suspects. But there is this one barrier that sits right in front of our faces, literally right on the computer screen, that we almost never acknowledge.
Language.
Exactly, language. So I want you to picture this scenario for a second. You are an entrepreneur in South Africa. You've got the hustle. You have a great product. You are making sales.
Living the dream.
Right. But when it's time to actually formalize the business, to file the taxes, to do the books, to stay compliant, the tool you have to use speaks a language you don't actually think in. And I don't just mean accounting jargon, which is, confusing enough on its own. I mean the actual spoken language.
English. It creates a double barrier, really. I mean, you're trying to learn the complex logic of double-entry bookkeeping, which is already incredibly abstract, while simultaneously decoding a second or maybe even a third language. The cognitive load there is just massive.
It is. And that is exactly the friction point we are looking at today. We are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating stack of technical notes, translation tables, and internal review documents from a very specific project.
The localization of the accounting software osFinancials?
Yes, also known as TurboCASH H, specifically adapting it for the South African market.
And we should clarify up front, this isn't just about swapping out the word file for a different word in a drop-down menu. The documents show that when you try to make a rigid Western financial code speak is isiZulu or isiXhosa, you run into technical, legal, and even philosophical problems that most developers never even think about.
Right, so the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how you take an English-based financial system and make it work for a country with 12 official languages. And looking at the source material, the stakes are actually quite high here because, well, this is really about compliance, isn't it?
It absolutely is. The South African Revenue Service, SARS, is the real backdrop here. They have a massive mandate to improve tax compliance across the board. And one of the biggest reasons people don't comply isn't malice. It's simply that they don't understand what is being asked of them.
Yeah, I was looking at the demographic data in the notes, and it really flips the script on what we usually assume is quote-unquote normal in global business. We tend to just assume English is the default. But in South Africa,
It is very much a minority language. If you look at the census data we have in the sources, English is the home language for only about 8.7% of the population.
8.7.
Yeah, which is roughly 5.5 million people.
So nearly 92% of the country speaks something else at home.
Correct. The giant in the room is isiZulu at roughly 24.4%. That is a solid quarter of the entire country. Then you have isiXhosa at about 16%. So just those two Bantu languages represent 40% of the potential user base. Yet, historically, the software landscape there has been almost exclusively English and Afrikaans.
And the notes actually mention that. They show English and Afrikaans are listed as available and complete in the codebase, but the other languages, isiZulu, isiXhosa, Sepedi, Setswana, they're all stuck in this state of review or translation needed.
And that is exactly the gap this project is trying to close. SARS has legally committed to using all 11 official spoken languages for education and support. They've even released this really comprehensive multilingual tax terminology guide with something like 450 key terms. They are really trying to meet the taxpayer halfway.
But there's a catch there, isn't there? Because the notes make a very sharp distinction between support and transaction.
It's a huge distinction. You can read a brochure in isiZulu. You can call a government call center and speak to someone in isiXhosa. But when you log into eFigling to actually submit your ITR-12 tax return,
You're back in English.
exactly, the interface, the forms, the actual submission buttons, it is strictly an English environment. So the software we are analyzing today, TurboCASH H, is trying to act as the bridge.
Okay, how so?
It allows the business owner to do their daily work, so the invoicing, the stock control, reading the ledger in their mother tongue. They only have to deal with English at the very final second when the data is officially pushed out to the government.
That is such a crucial insight. It completely separates the workflow from the output. So let's get into the how of it all, because looking at these technical how-to documents, this isn't just a simple Google Translate overlay. It seems way deeper than that.
Oh, it has to be. In software architecture, you usually have what developers call strings, which are just text labels for buttons and menus. But an accounting package is basically a giant database. It has data inside it that also needs to be translated dynamically.
Is this the multi-language accounts plugin that was mentioned in the notes?
Yes, exactly. It uses a dynamic localization technique on the set of books. Think of the set of books as the core database. The system allows multiple users to access that exact same database, but view it through completely different linguistic lenses.
So wait, if we are partners in an accounting firm, I can log in and see the phrase general ledger in English, and you can log in on your computer and see the isiXhosa equivalent, but we are manipulating the exact same number.
You've got it, and it goes all the way down to the chart of accounts. This is the list of buckets where money goes: rent, salaries, sales. The system allows all of these account names to be translated dynamically based on who is looking at them.
There is a specific variable mentioned in the developer notes for this that I thought was really clever. It's called slanguage, all one word.
It is a terrible name, but a genuinely brilliant feature.
Break that down for us. What does slanguage actually do?
It stands for source language or system language. In a typical database, you might just store a customer's name and their physical address. But here, they actually store the customer's language preference right in this language field.
Okay, I follow.
So when the system generates a document, let's say an invoice, it doesn't just print whatever language is currently on the accountant's screen. It checks that database field. If customer A is marked as an isiZulu speaker, the system pulls the specific isiZulu template.
That's smart.
Yeah, it swaps out placeholders like the code for the app name or the date and replaces the static text with the Zulu translation.
So I, as the accountant, might be clicking a button that says print invoice in English, but the physical piece of paper that it comes out of the printer.
Trumpkin's completely in isiZulu because the document is for the recipient, not the sender. This is absolutely massive for reducing business disputes.
I'll bet.
Think about it. If you send a letter of demand to a debtor in a rural area, and it's written in high-level legal English, they might just ignore it out of sheer confusion. But if it arrives in their mother tongue, the message actually lands.
It changes the entire relationship. It respects the customer. But, getting those words right in the first place, that is where the real drama is in these notes. We have this whole file of outstanding issues for the isiXhosa translation, and it honestly reads like a comedy of errors in some places.
It's the perfect example of why a straight dictionary translation completely fails when you're dealing with functional software.
Let's look at the Tyla versus Vula debate. The original translator used the word Tyla for the software command open set of books.
Right. Now, if you look in a dictionary, Tyla does mean to open. But context is everything here. Tyla really implies uncovering something, revealing it, like taking the lid off a boiling pot or turning the page of a book to reveal a story.
It's almost theatrical, like reveal the books.
Exactly. But in a software context, that is incredibly confusing. We aren't uncovering a mystery, we are just accessing a digital file. So the review notes corrected this to vula.
Vula.
Yeah, vula is a functional verb. You vula a door. You vula a physical gate. So you vula the file. It's an action of access, not an action of revelation.
That is such a subtle shift, but I can totally see how if you get it wrong, the user just feels like the software is, I don't know, weird. Like it doesn't quite fit their world.
It breaks the immersion completely. Another great one was save as. The original translation provided was yigsin afo.
Which translates to what exactly?
Save it there.
Save it there.
Yeah.
That sounds like someone pointing at a physical shelf in a room. Like, just put it over there.
It's way too conversational. It lacks the technical precision you need in an interface. The correction in the notes changed it to jikina and gokwe. This means save according to or save in the format of. It tells the user they are about to make a specific choice about the file type or the location. It is instructive rather than just descriptive.
Which brings us to what I think is easily the most interesting intellectual battle in all these documents, the fight between the purists and the pragmatists, the whole loan word debate.
Ah, yes. This is a classic sociolinguistic struggle. When a brand new technology arrives, like a computer or a sophisticated digital tax system, the local language usually hasn't had the time to evolve natural words for it yet. So you are left with two choices. Choice A, you invent a brand new word using traditional roots. Or choice B, you just borrow the English word and adapt the spelling to fit.
And we see this play out perfectly with the word for invoice. The purists' translation in the notes was ifefa and lawulo,
which literally means payment paper.
Yeah.
It is highly descriptive, and it is grammatically accurate ex host.
Right.
But nobody actually uses it in a real shop.
So.
If you go to a spaza shop in Swico, they are going to ask for an invoice. Maybe they pronounce it I invoice. So the review notes explicitly rejected that purist term. They decided to go with I Ankile.
I Anki. Honestly, that doesn't sound anything like the word invoice to me.
It's likely a phonetic adaptation that derived from Africans or Dutch influences and just settled into the local lexicon over decades. But the key thing is, it's a recognized term in that specific business context. If you use payment paper, you sound like an academic textbook from 1950. If you use I ankle, you sound like a real business.
But they aren't actually consistent with this rule, are they? Because I was looking at label 23 in the translation table, budget. They didn't use a loan word there. They didn't just write I budget.
No, they didn't. For budget, they went full traditional. The term they used is ulalo wabiwomali.
That is quite a mouthful. Ulalo wabiwo mali.
It is long, but look at the intended meaning. It translates roughly to the partitioning or division of money. It carries a real weight of authority. It sounds governmental. It sounds serious.
Oh, I see. So an invoice is just a quick, everyday transactional thing, so it's fine to use a loan word. But a budget is this serious governance thing, so we pull out the formal traditional term.
Precisely. The language choice itself is signaling the status and importance of the action.
While we are on the topic of traditional terms, I really have to pause and talk about the calendar translations. The notes for the month names. They are genuinely poetic.
They are beautiful, and I think they really highlight how disconnected English has become from the physical, natural world. January is just a name named after a Roman god, Janus. It tells you absolutely nothing about the environment you're living in.
But in isiXhosa, January is translated as Iomkungu.
The month of the tambuki grass, because that is exactly when that specific grass ripens.
And February is Iomdumba.
The month of the swelling grain.
I mean, just imagine staring at a financial spreadsheet. Usually it is cold, hard data, column A, row 1. But here, the column header for February is literally reminding you that the grain is swelling in the fields.
And for an agricultural business, which many, many small businesses in South Africa are, that isn't just nice poetry, that is highly relevant data. It roots the abstract financial period in their seasonal reality. It creates a much richer user interface than just seeing month 02.
That's amazing. However, looking at the notes, not everything is poetic. Sometimes translation just physically breaks the machine. There is a whole section on technical pitfalls, and it gets pretty nerdy.
This is where the rubber really meets the road for the developers. You can have the most perfect, culturally resonant isiXhosa translation in the world, but if you accidentally type a double quote mark, you can crash the entire application.
Okay, you have to explain that to me. Why does a standard punctuation mark destroy the software?
It's all about how the code is parsed by the computer. In the programming language Delphi, which TurboCASH is built on, and in many others too, a string of text is defined by quote marks. So the underlying code basically says, start quote, the words, hello world, end quote.
Okay, simple enough.
Right. Now imagine a translator is working on a sentence and writes, press enter to continue. If they type those double quotes around the word enter inside the text field, the computer reads along, sees the first quote before enter, and thinks, okay, the text string is finished. Exactly. Then it sees the word enter just floating there in the code, has no idea what command that is, and throws a massive syntax error.
So what happens? Does the menu just vanish?
The menu vanishes, data goes missing, or the whole program just crashes to the desktop. The developer notes are incredibly specific about this. They scream, you must escape the characters. You have to use a backslash or a specific code sequence to basically tell the computer, hey, this next quote mark is just normal text. Please don't treat it as executable code.
It's complete minefield for a translator who isn't a trained coder.
Yeah.
And then there's the physical issue of space on the screen. The UI constraint.
The Tetris problem.
The Tetris problem.
Yeah, because English is actually a very compact language, but German, isiZulu, and isiXhosa are what we call agglutinative languages. They stick multiple words and prefixes together to make meaning, so the words get very long.
I saw the example they gave. Supplier returns per week.
Yeah.
In English, that fits perfectly on a standard button.
But in isiZulu, that exact phrase might be 40% longer, and the physical button on the screen is hard-coded at exactly 100 pixels wide. If you just type the full proper translation, the text gets violently cut off. You end up with a button that says supplier ret, and the user have absolutely no idea what clicking it actually does.
So the translators basically have to become interface editors.
They do. They have to invent abbreviations that don't officially exist in the language. Things like suppler, RD, A, N, WPBK. They have to convey the full meaning in a tiny, rigid box without making it look like total gibberish.
Which naturally brings us to the inconsistency issue. The source highlights this huge danger of calling a sales order one thing on the main menu and then something completely different on the printed report.
Yes, iota lukothengiza versus umialo okutengisa. If you use different words for the exact same function, the user naturally assumes they're two different things. It creates doubt. And doubt is the enemy of accounting. That's why the glossary they mention in the source text is absolutely mandatory. You have to pick a lane and stay in it across the entire software suite.
Let's do a quick rapid fire on some of the specific terminology, wins and fails from that glossary. Just the ones that really stood out to us in the notes.
Let's go for it.
Okay, debtors and creditors.
In Xhosa, debtors are translated as abatiali, which literally means the people who owe. But for creditors, they totally avoided the generic word for debt. They used ingwe. This is a highly specific term for the entity you owe money to. It adds incredible precision to the ledger.
Nice. Next one, stock. In English, the label stock is super ambiguous. It could be stock market shares, it could be chicken stock for soup, it could be warehouse inventory.
The Xhosa translation clears that up instantly. Izinto zokuthengisa, literally, items for sale. If you can't sell it, it is not stock. It removes the English ambiguity completely for a shop owner.
Here is my personal favorite fail that was caught in the review phase, the exit button. You just want to close the program and go home.
Oh, this was bad. The original translation provided was Yeyakwit TurboCASH.
Which is
Go TurboCASH.
But you are already inside TurboCASH.
Exactly. Imagine walking towards the exit door of a building you're already in, and the sign on the door says, go into the building. You'd be trapped in a mental loop.
So how did they fix a critical bug like that?
They changed it to FUMA. Just simple, direct. It means get out or exit.
One last rapid fire. Brand protection. The review notes have a very severe warning about this.
This is a massive legal trap. Translators often want to be as helpful and recognizable as possible, so they will translate the generic word spreadsheet as Excel, or they'll translate word processor as Word.
Because, I mean, that is what everyone actually uses.
Sure, colloquially, but you cannot put a trademark name like Microsoft Excel into the official interface of a competing software product. It is a massive lawsuit just waiting to happen. The notes are very clear, use generic terms only.
So, kind of stepping back from the raw code and the individual translations for a minute, what is the real big picture here? We've gone from Tyla versus Vula to the month of the swelling grain. Why does this specific localization project actually matter?
It matters because it directly addresses the learner profile we talked about right at the intro. Ultimately, this is about access to the economy.
It's democratizing the actual tools of business.
Exactly. Think about the mental energy an entrepreneur saves here. If every single time you click a button, you have to do a micro translation in your head, you operate slower. You are less confident in your financials. You are constantly scared you're going to click delete when you really meant to click save.
By localizing the tool, you completely remove that ambient fear.
And you validate their culture in the corporate space. You are fundamentally saying, isiZulu is a legitimate business language. You can build real wealth in your mother tongue. That is an incredibly powerful message to send.
And on a practical level, it creates what I like to think of as a shadow ledger. The math running in the background, the ones and zeros, is totally universal. 1 + 1 is 2 in English, and it's 2 in Xhosa. But the interface, the way you personally experience and interact with that math, is highly personal.
That is the key takeaway. Absolutely.
So I want to leave you with this thought. If language fundamentally shapes how we think, what linguists call the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, does an accountant thinking in isiXhosa actually see the business differently than an accountant thinking in English?
It is a fascinating question.
Right. Like if I call a budget the partitioning of money, ulalawabiwo malidudu, I treat that money with more reverence than if I just casually call it a budget. Does the sheer weight of the word change the financial behavior of the business owner?
That's the real philosophical layer here.
And looking forward, as AI translation gets better and better, are we going to see more of these pragmatic loan words like ankle taking over? Or will we actually see a renaissance of deep, traditional phrasing being integrated into our tech?
Will technology dilute the language, or will it save it by making it usable in the modern world?
Something to mull over the next time you find yourself staring at a very boring tax form. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Always a pleasure.
Catch you on the next deep dive.